Most people want success, but very few stop to define what success actually means for their own life. They say they want more money, better health, stronger relationships, a meaningful career, or a sense of freedom, but they often move through life reacting instead of directing. That is the problem Jack Canfield tries to solve in the Success Principles. This book is not built around luck, talent, or secret shortcuts. It is built around the idea that success leaves clues, and if you understand the patterns behind achievement, you can apply them to almost any area of life. At the core of the book is a powerful message: success is not random. It is not reserved for a chosen few. It is a result of certain principles, repeated consistently until they shape your habits, your decisions, and eventually your identity. Canfield argues that most people stay stuck because they underestimate how much responsibility they actually have. They blame the economy, their upbringing, their boss, their family, their age, or their circumstances. And while those factors do matter, the book insists that your future still depends most on the choices you make from this point forward. This is why the book begins with mindset before it moves into strategy. If you believe that success is mostly controlled by outside forces, then you will wait. You will hesitate. You will make excuses that feel reasonable. But if you believe that your actions, responses, and standards shape your results, then you begin to see opportunities where others see limits. That shift is where growth begins. The Success Principles is really a guide for reclaiming personal power. It tells you that you can become more intentional, more disciplined, and more effective than you are right now. It challenges the passive mindset that says, "I hope things improve," and replaces it with a more active mindset, "I can improve things." That is not just positive thinking. It is a practical philosophy for living. As we go through the ideas in this book, you will notice a pattern. The principles are simple, but they are not easy. They ask you to tell the truth about your current results. They ask you to set clear goals, change your habits, build confidence, ask for what you want, and keep going when progress feels slow. In other words, they ask you to become the kind of person who can create success, not just wish for it. That is what makes this book so useful. It does not promise magic. It promises results through ownership, clarity, action, and persistence. And for anyone trying to improve their life, that message is both challenging and deeply encouraging. If there is one principle that holds the entire book together, it is this: take 100% responsibility for your life. Jack Canfield presents this as the foundation of all success. Without it, nothing else sticks. You can have goals, plans, and motivation, but if you still believe your life is mainly controlled by other people or outside events, you will always give away your power. Canfield uses a simple but memorable formula: event plus response equals outcome. In other words, things happen. Some of them are fair and some of them are not. Some are expected and some are painful surprises. But between what happens to you and the result you get, there is always your response. That response includes your mindset, your behavior, your interpretation, and your next action. The more control you take over that part, the more control you gain over your life. This principle can feel uncomfortable because it removes the comfort of excuses. Excuses protect the ego. They let us explain why we have not changed. They make an action feel justified. But they also keep us trapped. The moment you stop blaming and start owning, you may lose the excuse, but you gain the ability to act. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything. It does not mean pretending life is always fair. It means accepting that you are still responsible for your choices now. Even if your past was difficult, even if your environment is challenging, even if someone else made mistakes that affected you, your next decision still belongs to you. This idea is powerful because it changes the questions you ask. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What can I do next?" Instead of saying, "No one gave me a chance," you ask, "How can I create one?" Instead of waiting for permission, you begin to take initiative. In practical terms, this means paying attention to where you complain, where you procrastinate, and where you quietly expect someone else to fix what only you can fix. It means noticing the stories you tell yourself when you fall short. Do you say, "I do not have time," when the truth is you have not made it a priority? Do you say, "I am just not that kind of person," when the real issue is fear? Responsibility starts with honesty. Canfield wants the reader to understand that personal responsibility is not a burden. It is freedom. When your future depends on your choices, then your future can change. That realization is one of the most powerful turning points in self-improvement. The moment you fully accept responsibility, you stop waiting for your life to begin and start building it yourself. Once responsibility is in place, the next major principle is clarity. According to Jack Canfield, most people are vague about their goals. They say they want success, but success is too broad. They say they want happiness, but happiness is too abstract. They say they want a better life, but they cannot describe what better looks like in detail. The problem with vague desires is that they lead to vague action. Canfield emphasizes that you must decide what you want in specific, measurable, meaningful terms. This applies to money, career, health, relationships, contribution, spiritual growth, and lifestyle. The more clearly you define your destination, the easier it becomes to move toward it. If you do not know where you are going, effort gets scattered. You stay busy, but you do not make real progress. Clarity matters because your brain works like a goal-seeking mechanism. When you set a clear intention, your attention changes. You begin to notice opportunities, resources, people, and patterns that were always there but invisible before. It is not magic. It is focus. When your mind has a target, your behavior becomes more organized around it. Canfield encourages readers to dream bigger than they are used to. Many people limit their goals because they do not want to be disappointed. They set goals they know they can reach, or they avoid setting them at all. But this creates a life based on caution instead of possibility. The book pushes you to ask not only what seems realistic, but what would truly excite you if fear was not in control. This principle also asks you to separate your real desires from borrowed goals. Sometimes people chase status, approval, or social expectations without questioning whether those things actually matter to them. They pursue careers they do not enjoy, lifestyles they do not want, or definitions of success they never chose. True clarity requires self-honesty. What kind of life feels meaningful to you? What would make you proud of the way you are living? The practical lesson here is to write your goals down. Put them in concrete language. Give them numbers, dates, and emotional significance. Instead of saying, "I want to be healthier," say, "I want to lose 15 pounds, walk 5 times a week, and feel energetic every morning by the end of 6 months." Instead of saying, "I want more income," say, "I want to earn a specific amount per month through work that I enjoy and find meaningful." Clarity creates direction. Direction creates momentum. And momentum is one of the most valuable forces in personal growth. The clearer your goals, the easier it becomes to identify what matters, what does not, and what must change. In Canfield's view, success begins the moment your goals stop being private wishes and become written commitments. A clear goal is important, but it is not enough. You also have to believe, at some level, that the goal is possible for you. This is where many people sabotage themselves. They may speak positively on the surface, but underneath that, they carry limiting beliefs. I am not smart enough. I am too old. I missed my chance. People like me do not become successful. I always fail when it matters. Jack Canfield argues that beliefs are powerful because they influence action. If you do not believe success is possible for you, you will hesitate, under-prepare, avoid risk, and unconsciously lower your standards. Your behavior will start matching your doubts. On the other hand, when you develop stronger belief, you take more consistent action, recover faster from setbacks, and interpret problems as temporary instead of permanent. This does not mean pretending you have no fear. It means refusing to treat fear as evidence that something cannot be done. One of the key lessons in self-improvement is that confidence often comes after action, not before it. Many people wait to feel ready, but readiness is usually built in motion. Canfield encourages readers to challenge old mental programming. Many limiting beliefs were picked up from childhood, school, failure, comparison, or repeated criticism. Over time, they start to feel like facts. But a belief is often just a thought repeated enough times to feel true. Once you understand that, you can begin to replace disempowering beliefs with stronger ones. This is why visualization, affirmations, and mental rehearsal appear throughout the book. To some people, these tools sound simplistic, but their real purpose is practical. They help retrain attention and emotional expectation. If you constantly picture failure, embarrassment, and rejection, your mind becomes conditioned for caution. If you repeatedly picture yourself speaking confidently, building your business, improving your body, or handling challenges well, you start creating a mental environment that supports growth. Belief also grows through evidence. One way to strengthen belief is to look for examples of people who achieved what you want, especially if they started with obstacles of their own. Success stories matter because they expand your sense of possibility. They remind you that difficulty does not automatically mean defeat. The deeper message here is simple: your identity can evolve. You are not locked into who you used to be. You can learn, improve, adapt, and expand. That belief alone changes everything. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as permanently limited, you begin to act like someone whose future is still being created. One of the most underrated themes in the success principles is commitment. Many people say they want change, but what they really mean is that they would like change if it comes conveniently. They want the result, but they have not fully decided to pay the price for it. Jack Canfield makes it clear that there is a huge difference between preference and commitment. A preference says, I would like to get in shape. A commitment says, I will train consistently, change my habits, and stay with this long enough to become healthier. A preference says, I want to write a book someday. A commitment says, I will create a schedule, finish the draft, and keep going even when the excitement fades. Commitment changes the standard. When you truly commit, you stop negotiating with every discomfort. You stop treating obstacles as signs that you should quit. Instead, you treat them as part of the process. This is crucial because almost every meaningful goal includes a period where progress is slow, messy, or invisible. If your commitment is weak, you will interpret that stage as failure. If your commitment is strong, you will interpret it as training. Canfield reminds the reader that success often requires a line in the sand moment, a point where you decide that staying the same is no longer acceptable. That decision creates emotional leverage. It gives your goals energy. Without emotional commitment, goals remain interesting ideas. With emotional commitment, they become priorities. This principle also means eliminating escape routes. Sometimes people protect themselves by keeping one foot in and one foot out. They avoid full effort because they do not want to risk full disappointment. But that half-committed state creates weak results. You cannot build an extraordinary life with casual effort. In practical terms, commitment means creating structure around your goal. It means setting deadlines, tracking progress, making public promises when appropriate, and shaping your environment to support your new standard. It may also mean saying no to distractions, reducing time with negative influences, or sacrificing short-term comfort. The real lesson is that success is not built on bursts of emotion. It is built on sustained commitment long after motivation rises and falls. The people who achieve meaningful things are not always the most talented. Often, they are the ones who stayed committed after others drifted away. Canfield's message is clear: decide fully, then let your actions prove that the decision was real. If mindset creates the foundation, action creates the result. Jack Canfield repeatedly emphasizes that goals do not respond to intention alone. You can visualize, affirm, and plan, but if you do not take consistent action, nothing changes. This sounds obvious, but many people still underestimate how much action is actually required. Canfield introduces the idea that successful people often take more action than average people expect. They make more calls, have more conversations, test more ideas, ask more questions, read more books, and keep going longer. From the outside, this can look like luck or natural momentum. But underneath it is usually a willingness to move, experiment, and persist. This principle matters because action creates feedback. Feedback creates improvement. You cannot refine what you never start. A business idea gets better after conversations with real customers. A speaking skill gets stronger after actual presentations. A fitness goal becomes realistic after real workouts, not endless planning. Action turns vague ambition into tangible progress. One of the biggest traps Canfield warns against is overthinking. Many people want the perfect strategy before they begin. They want certainty, confidence, and guaranteed results first. But life rarely works that way. Clarity often comes through movement, not before it. The first step may not be ideal, but it reveals the next one. This is why the book encourages readers to break goals into specific actions and execute them daily. If you want a new job, your actions might include improving your resume, networking, applying strategically, and building skills. If you want to grow a business, your actions might include sales outreach, content creation, customer research, and follow-up. If you want better health, your actions might include meal preparation, exercise, sleep discipline, and tracking habits. Canfield also highlights the emotional side of action. Often, the hardest part is not knowing what to do. It is doing what you already know while facing resistance, fear, boredom, or inconvenience. That is why action must become a habit, not just a mood. You cannot depend on feeling inspired every day. The practical value of this principle is enormous. It reminds you that progress is not mysterious. It is usually the result of repeated effort in the right direction. Even moderate actions, if done consistently, can create major change over time. And once action becomes normal, confidence begins to follow. The best way to stop doubting yourself is often to keep showing yourself that you can act. Fear is one of the biggest obstacles to success, not because it always stops people completely, but because it slows them down in subtle ways. It keeps them waiting, shrinking, delaying, and second-guessing. Jack Canfield does not present fear as something only weak people experience. He presents it as a normal part of growth. The difference is not whether fear shows up. The difference is how you respond when it does. Any meaningful goal will probably trigger discomfort. If you want to build a business, you may fear rejection, failure, or instability. If you want to improve your relationships, you may fear vulnerability or conflict. If you want to speak in public, create content, apply for leadership, or change careers, fear will likely come with the territory. That does not mean you are on the wrong path. In many cases, it means you are stepping beyond your old limits. Canfield encourages readers to stop waiting for fear to disappear. Growth rarely works that way. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to move forward in spite of it. The more often you act while afraid, the more your comfort zone expands. What once felt impossible becomes manageable and eventually normal. This principle is essential because many dreams die quietly under the label of practicality. People say they are being realistic, but sometimes they are simply avoiding discomfort. Fear can wear very intelligent disguises. It can look like perfectionism, endless planning, reluctance to ask for help, or staying in situations that feel safe but unfulfilling. The book's message here is to reframe fear as a signal of growth. If something matters to you and it scares you, that may be exactly why you should move toward it carefully and deliberately. Not recklessly, but courageously. In practical terms, this means taking small, bold actions. Make the call. Send the email. Publish the video. Ask the question. Have the honest conversation. Enroll in the class. Apply for the opportunity. Confidence grows through evidence, and evidence comes from action. Canfield also reminds readers that fear loses power when brought into the light. Write down what you are afraid of. Name it clearly. Often the mind creates a vague sense of dread, but once you define the fear, you can deal with it more rationally. You can make a plan, prepare, and move anyway. Success does not belong only to the fearless. It belongs to the people who keep moving while fear tries to convince them to stay still. One of the simplest yet most powerful lessons in the success principles is that many people do not get what they want because they never ask. They assume others will notice, offer, invite, promote, support, or reward them without being prompted. But life does not usually work like that. Jack Canfield argues that asking is a core success skill. This applies to more areas than most people realize. You may need to ask for a raise, a meeting, feedback, mentorship, support, an introduction, a discount, a sales opportunity, or more clarity in a relationship. Yet many people avoid asking because they fear rejection, embarrassment, or appearing needy. So they stay silent and settle for less. Canfield challenges that silence. He shows that asking creates possibilities that passivity never will. The worst outcome is often that someone says no, and even then, you gain information, practice, and sometimes a path to a later yes. But when you do not ask, the answer is already no by default. This principle is especially valuable because success often depends on interaction. Opportunities frequently come through people, and people cannot respond to needs, ideas, or offers they never hear. The ability to ask clearly and confidently can accelerate progress in business, career, and relationships. Of course, asking well matters. It should be respectful, specific, and grounded. Instead of vaguely hoping for support, say what you need. Instead of assuming someone knows your value, communicate it. Instead of waiting for recognition, create conversations. This principle also pushes against the belief that good work speaks for itself. Sometimes it does, but often it needs a voice. Talented people remain overlooked because they stay invisible. Meanwhile, people with less talent but more willingness to ask often advance faster. That may not always feel fair, but it is real. Canfield's deeper point is that asking reflects self-worth. When you ask for what you want, you behave like someone who believes their goals matter. You stop living from the position of apology. You begin participating more actively in shaping your life. For viewers building careers, businesses, channels, or personal brands, this principle is a game changer. Ask for collaborations. Ask for feedback. Ask your audience to subscribe. Ask mentors thoughtful questions. Ask clients for referrals. Ask for the chance to prove yourself. Many doors stay closed not because they are locked, but because no one knocks. A major reason people quit too early is that they interpret setbacks emotionally instead of strategically. They take rejection personally, treat failure as identity, and assume that obstacles mean they are not meant for success. Jack Canfield pushes back hard against that idea. He teaches that setbacks are not evidence that your goal is impossible. They are often evidence that you are in the real process of pursuing something meaningful. Anyone building anything worthwhile will face disappointment. A proposal gets ignored. A business idea performs badly. A job application goes nowhere. A launch underdelivers. A personal improvement plan falls apart after a few weeks. The key question is not whether setbacks happen. The key question is what meaning you assign to them. If you interpret failure as proof that you are incapable, you shrink. If you interpret it as feedback, you improve. This is one of the most important mental shifts in the book. Failure is data. It tells you something about timing, strategy, execution, assumptions, or effort. It is painful, yes, but it can also be informative. Canfield encourages readers to normalize rejection. Many successful people have long histories of being ignored, dismissed, underestimated, or told no. What separates them is not perfect performance. It is the refusal to stop. They learn, adjust, and continue. This principle matters because people often romanticize success after the fact. They see the final result, but not the hidden years of trial, error, embarrassment, and persistence. The book brings that reality back into focus. Growth is rarely smooth. Progress is not always visible. Sometimes the path forward includes repeated discomfort. In practical terms, this means developing resilience habits. Review what happened. Identify what can be improved. Seek feedback. Make changes. Return stronger. Avoid turning temporary setbacks into permanent conclusions. There is also an emotional lesson here. Setbacks test your relationship with yourself. Do you attack yourself when things go wrong, or do you stay constructive? Do you collapse into shame, or do you remain engaged with the process? Self-improvement requires resilience, but it also requires self-respect during difficult seasons. Canfield's message is liberating. Failure is not the opposite of success. Very often, it is part of success. The only true failure is refusing to learn, adapt, and keep moving. Many people think confidence is something you either have or you do not. Jack Canfield presents a more useful view. Confidence is built. It grows through preparation, action, repetition, and proof. In other words, confidence is not just a feeling. It is a result. This idea matters because a lack of confidence often stops people from even starting. They believe they need to feel certain before speaking up, launching a project, or chasing an opportunity. But real confidence usually comes after doing the thing enough times to realize you can handle it. Preparation plays a huge role here. If you want to perform better, prepare more thoroughly. Study your craft. Rehearse your message. Learn the system. Improve the skill. When you prepare seriously, you reduce uncertainty, and that makes courage easier. Canfield emphasizes that self-belief is strengthened when you know you have done the work. Practice also matters because repetition reduces emotional intensity. The first sales call may feel terrifying. The 20th feels easier. The first video may feel awkward. The 50th feels more natural. The first difficult conversation may keep you awake at night. Over time, you learn that discomfort is survivable. This principle is empowering because it turns confidence into something trainable. You do not have to wait for a personality transplant. You can build confidence deliberately by taking action, developing skills, and keeping promises to yourself. Canfield also points to the importance of self-talk. If you constantly insult yourself internally, your confidence will stay fragile. You may outwardly function, but inwardly you will remain hesitant. Strong confidence grows in an environment of constructive self-leadership. That means correcting mistakes without destroying your own spirit. In practical life, confidence is often less about ego and more about evidence. Have you practiced? Have you prepared? Have you stayed consistent long enough to trust yourself? Confidence becomes stronger when your mind has real proof that you can follow through. This section is especially useful for people who feel behind or intimidated. You do not need to compare your beginning to someone else's polished result. Start where you are. Prepare seriously. Practice often. Let repetition create familiarity. Let familiarity create calm. And let calm create stronger performance. That is how confidence is built in the real world. One of the quieter but deeply practical lessons in the success principles is that success is not just about willpower. It is also about environment. Your habits, standards, beliefs, and actions are influenced by the people around you, the spaces you live in, the systems you use, and the cues you repeatedly encounter. Jack Canfield encourages readers to stop relying only on motivation and start designing supportive conditions. This matters because even strong intentions can lose against a poorly designed environment. If your schedule is chaotic, your phone constantly distracts you, your room drains your energy, and the people around you normalize excuses, then growth becomes harder than it needs to be. On the other hand, when your environment supports your goals, discipline becomes easier. Canfield talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with positive, successful, and growth-oriented people. This is not about becoming fake or abandoning everyone who is struggling. It is about recognizing that attitudes are contagious. If you spend most of your time around people who complain, settle, and avoid responsibility, that mindset will affect you. If you spend time around people who challenge themselves, take action, and aim higher, that also affects you. Environment also includes your physical space. Is your workspace organized or distracting? Are your goals visible? Are the tools you need accessible? Are temptations reduced? A simple environment change can support better behavior more effectively than endless self-criticism. The same is true for routines and systems. If you want to read more, place books where you can see them. If you want to exercise, prepare your clothes ahead of time. If you want to create content consistently, schedule production blocks and reduce decision fatigue. Success becomes more likely when good actions are easier to repeat. This principle is powerful because it removes some of the moral drama from behavior change. Sometimes you are not lazy. Sometimes your environment is making your best intentions harder to maintain. Once you understand that, you can stop judging yourself so harshly and start making strategic adjustments. Canfield's broader message is that personal growth should not depend entirely on heroic effort. Build structures that support who you want to become. Let your environment remind you, not distract you. Let it reinforce action, not sabotage it. In the long run, your surroundings either pull you toward your goals or away from them. Choose deliberately. Although many people come to the success principles looking for career or financial advice, Jack Canfield makes it clear that true success is broader than achievement alone. A person can be professionally accomplished and still feel lonely, disconnected, resentful, or emotionally exhausted. That is why relationships matter. Success in relationships begins with the same principles found elsewhere in the book: responsibility, honesty, communication, and intentional action. Many relationship problems persist because people wait for the other person to change first. They expect others to read their mind, repair the tension, or offer the apology. But just like in other areas of life, growth often begins when you take ownership of your part. Canfield encourages openness and direct communication. This means expressing needs clearly, listening carefully, and being willing to address issues instead of avoiding them. Many relationships weaken not because of one dramatic event, but because of small patterns of neglect, assumption, and emotional distance. Another important lesson is appreciation. People often focus on what is missing instead of reinforcing what is working. Genuine praise, gratitude, and acknowledgement strengthen connection. Whether in marriage, friendship, family, or work, people respond to being seen and valued. The book also reminds readers that boundaries matter. Being kind does not mean being passive. Healthy relationships require clarity, respect, and self-worth. Asking for what you need, saying no when necessary, and refusing resentment are all part of mature connection. What makes this section so valuable is that it expands the definition of success. It asks a simple but important question: what is the point of achievement if your inner life and personal relationships are suffering? Real success should support a richer life, not a more hollow one. For many viewers, this will be a necessary reminder. Ambition is good, but it should not cost you every meaningful connection. The strongest version of success includes trust, love, honesty, and emotional stability. It includes becoming not just more effective, but also more present, more grateful, and more intentional with the people who matter most. In Canfield's world, success is not just about building a bigger life on the outside. It is also about building a better life on the inside and between people. Jack Canfield does not treat success as a vague emotional state. He also addresses results in the real world, including money and career growth. His message is not that money is everything, but that financial success often reflects value, skill, and service when approached with integrity. One of the key ideas here is that income tends to rise when your ability to create value rises. The marketplace rewards people who solve problems, improve outcomes, communicate clearly, build trust, and deliver meaningful results. This shifts the focus from wishful thinking to contribution. Instead of only asking, "How can I make more money?" ask, "How can I become more useful, more effective, and more valuable?" This perspective is empowering because it puts growth back in your hands. You may not control every market condition, but you can often improve your skills, your communication, your discipline, and your service. You can become better at sales, leadership, problem-solving, teaching, creating, negotiating, or building systems. Canfield also emphasizes that people must often promote themselves more than they are comfortable with. Not in an arrogant way, but in a clear, professional way. If your work has value, people need to know about it. If your product solves a problem, it needs visibility. If your career is stagnating, you may need to speak up, build a stronger network, or pursue better opportunities. There is also a lesson here about abundance. Many people carry hidden beliefs that money is selfish, success is suspicious, or ambition is morally unsafe. Those beliefs can quietly keep them under-earning and underperforming. Canfield encourages readers to see financial growth as something that can support freedom, generosity, and wider contribution. In practical terms, this means constantly asking how you can improve your craft and increase your impact. Read more. Learn faster. Serve better. Solve bigger problems. Build stronger relationships. Become someone whose presence improves outcomes. For viewers building channels, businesses, or careers, this principle is especially useful. If you want better results, focus on delivering stronger value. Study your audience. Improve your content. Communicate more clearly. Help more deeply. The results may not arrive instantly, but value compounds. And over time, people who consistently create real value become difficult to ignore. A dream life is built from ordinary days. That is one of the most practical truths behind the success principles. Jack Canfield makes it clear that success is not built only in big moments. It is built in repeated habits, daily routines, and disciplined choices that may look small in the moment but become powerful over time. This is where many people lose momentum. They get inspired by a new idea, feel motivated for a few days, then drift when the novelty fades. Canfield's answer is discipline. Not punishment, but self-direction. The ability to do what matters consistently, even when emotion is unstable. Habits matter because they reduce the need for constant decision-making. If success depends on willpower every single day, you will eventually burn out. But if useful behaviors become automatic, progress becomes more sustainable. Reading, planning, exercising, writing, following up, learning, creating, and reflecting can become part of your normal rhythm. Canfield encourages readers to identify the habits that support their goals and the habits that quietly sabotage them. This requires honesty. Which behaviors keep you stuck? Where do you waste energy? Which repeated choices create poor outcomes? Once you identify the pattern, you can replace it gradually. The beauty of habits is that they compound. One solid morning routine may improve your focus. Better focus improves your work. Better work improves your confidence. Better confidence improves your decisions. Small changes create larger ripples than people expect. This principle also teaches patience. Daily discipline often feels unimpressive at first because the results are delayed. That is why many people abandon it. But delayed results are still real. The person who keeps going through the quiet middle is often the one who eventually sees major transformation. In practical life, discipline may look like tracking your goals, setting priorities the night before, protecting your focus, limiting distractions, and creating default behaviors that support growth. It may also mean doing less, but doing the right things more consistently. Canfield's larger point is that your future is being shaped by what you repeat. Your habits are not just actions. They are evidence of your standards. Master the daily process, and the bigger results become far more likely. Another major lesson in the success principles is that success is not a fixed destination. It is an ongoing process of growth. Jack Canfield consistently encourages readers to remain teachable, curious, and willing to improve. The moment you think you already know enough, progress begins to slow. Lifelong learning matters because the world changes, opportunities evolve, and your goals expand. The skills that got you one level of success may not be enough for the next level. A person who wants to lead must keep developing emotionally and strategically. A person who wants to grow income must keep improving value. A person who wants stronger relationships must keep learning how to communicate and connect. Canfield treats personal development as a serious advantage, not a hobby. Reading, attending workshops, studying mentors, practicing new skills, and seeking feedback are all forms of investment. They expand your options and raise your standards. This principle also protects against stagnation. Some people achieve a small win and then coast. Others keep growing because they understand that fulfillment often comes not just from reaching goals, but from becoming more capable in the process. Growth brings energy. It keeps life dynamic. There is also humility in this lesson. Learning requires admitting that you do not know everything yet. That can feel uncomfortable, especially for people who want to appear confident. But real confidence is compatible with humility. In fact, the strongest people often learn the fastest because they are not obsessed with pretending. For viewers in self-improvement, entrepreneurship, and content creation, this principle is essential. Every result contains a lesson. Every challenge exposes a skill gap. Every plateau invites reinvention. The people who stay relevant and effective are the ones who keep learning. Practically, this means building a system for growth. Read books with intention. Take notes. Apply what you learn. Review your mistakes. Study people who are doing well in your field. Invest in education where it makes sense. Stay curious. Canfield's message is deeply hopeful. You never have to become trapped by your current level. There is always another lesson, another improvement, another layer of growth available to you. As long as you remain teachable, your potential continues expanding. By the end of the success principles, the book's deeper message becomes clear. Success is not only about getting more. It is about becoming more. Jack Canfield is not simply teaching readers how to achieve isolated goals. He is teaching them how to become the kind of person who consistently creates better results. That distinction matters. A person can chase one goal with intense effort and still fall back into old patterns afterward. But when identity changes, results become more repeatable. If you become responsible, focused, disciplined, courageous, and growth-oriented, success stops feeling like a lucky exception. It becomes a more natural expression of who you are. This is why the principles in the book work together. Responsibility gives you power. Clarity gives you direction. Belief gives you energy. Commitment gives you staying power. Action gives you momentum. Courage moves you through fear. Asking opens doors. Persistence carries you through setbacks. Habits make progress sustainable. Learning keeps you expanding. Together, these principles create personal transformation. The book also leaves the reader with an important challenge. Do not just admire these ideas. Apply them. Knowledge without action creates the illusion of growth without the reality of change. It is easy to agree with success principles. It is harder to live them. But that is exactly where the results come from. For anyone watching this summary, the practical takeaway is simple. Pick a few principles and begin immediately. Write down your goals. Take responsibility for your current results. Stop using one excuse that has been keeping you stuck. Take one uncomfortable action you have been avoiding. Improve one habit. Ask for one opportunity. Keep going 1 week longer than you normally would. You do not need to transform your life overnight. But you do need to stop waiting for the perfect mood, perfect timing, or perfect confidence. The path to success usually begins in ordinary moments, through repeated choices that align with a better standard. That is what makes the Success Principles such a lasting self-improvement book. It does not flatter the reader with fantasy. It respects the reader with truth. Your life can improve. Your results can change. Your future can be bigger than your past. But it happens when you accept responsibility, raise your standards, and become the person capable of carrying the life you want. In the end, the Success Principles are not secrets hidden from the world. They are truths most people already know but do not fully practice. And that is exactly why applying them can still change everything.